Welcome to everyone joining us this afternoon for the June 2021 edition of the PIF Member Spotlight Series, Shaping the Future for Global Branded Payments. Today, we're joined by 6 key stakeholders at Blackhawk Network, who will discuss how branded payment programs are helping businesses to innovate, build loyalty, and increase revenue. The team will also consider how Blackhawk has tackled the challenges of new and changing regulation. Today's webinar will be recorded. Please use the Q&A on your screens if you have a question for one of the team. I will now hand you over to Sebastian Ricardoli, Senior Director, Prepaid and Payment Strategy with Blackhawk Network.
Thank you, Diane, for the quick introduction, and thank you everyone for watching the webinar, and again also to give us the opportunity to present Blackhawk Network. We believe that we are shaping the future of global branded payments, and is by using our different products, services and technology that we connect people and brands. So today we wanted to give you an overview of who we are, and for that I can tell you that we won't be talking about the Brexit, we won't be talking about the letter to the CEO, we won't talk about the negative interest, and we will not talk about COVID, although how can we? So we will try to give you an overview of Blackhawk Network, because we've been associated to only gift card distribution in retail, but we are actually more than that. And today we brought a couple of my colleagues. Stacy will talk about the products, the different products that we have, and the challenges that we face every day, and that is probably similar to you. And also we will have some different use cases that we have been working on, and Peter will give you an overview of the financial relief during the pandemic and the programs that we have been working on. Then Luana will provide the use case of the payment solution for clinical trial studies and research that we're doing. And finally, Ronan from Ireland will provide us an overview of the customer insurance rebate scheme. And hopefully, because I will not be presenting the rest of the slides, you will not have the type of things, because obviously being French, we use that word quite often. A quick introduction of Blackhawk. So we've been really associated to the third-party gift card distribution through retail. We have a global presence with offices across the world, in Brazil, US, Germany, Netherlands, UK, Ireland, Japan, etc. So we are really a global company, and the latest numbers regarding the gift card industry from 2019 was about $600 billion, and estimated to reach about $2,000 billion by 2027. Seems a long time away from now, but the numbers are extremely high. So we've been working with different companies across the globe, and we have partners in multiple verticals. In retail, for instance, we work with Tesco, we work with Xbox, we work with MasterCard, we work with Visa, we work with Amazon, Alipay, and so on. So we have thousands of partners across the globe. And what we've done for those partners is either we provided some solution to distribute products, or we build technology with them, or we actually distributing their product. So now I'll hand it over to Stacy, who looks after the product, the prepaid product in Blackhawk. So I'll hand it over to you, Stacey.
Great, thanks, Seb. So I'm just going to give you a quick whistle-stop tour, if you like, of our wider product range at Blackhawk, and talk a little bit about the regulatory landscape and the challenges that brings us, before, as we say, we hand over to our other colleagues to walk through some of the case studies. So if you go to the next slide, please, Seb. Blackhawk Network do gift cards. I think Seb's already outlined this. This is kind of certainly true and probably how we're best known in the industry. However, we actually do a lot more. And if you go to the next slide, this slide really doesn't do justice to everything that Blackhawk do. We're a mammoth organization with many fingers in many different pies, as many large enterprises are. But this slide is just giving you a flavour of some of the types of products and services that we do offer today. We broadly categorise our business into these 4 pillars: so commerce, incentives, employee, and corporate. Commerce is all about providing solutions for retailers, so some of what Seb was talking about in the introduction, whether that's being the company behind a gift card program, whether that's physical or digital, or providing distribution services to retailers to sell gift cards, again, in store or online. But it's also about providing solutions for end consumers with products such as One for All, which is obviously built upon a prepaid card. Within the One for All family, we have multiple products. So we have obviously the most well-known being the One for All card, which is our multi-retailer solution that can be used at hundreds of retailers, both within the UK and Ireland. And we also have what I would call category cards. And these are restricted cards based on a particular type of spend. For example, Restaurant's Favourite is the card that is limited to 8 or 9 specific retailers, specific restaurants, who agree to participate in that kind of program. In the incentives pillar, this is where we provide reward and incentive solutions primarily to our B2B clients. So this could be a number of different use cases. For example, an employee achievement award, an employee long service award, or in the consumer space, sort of consumer incentives, something like go buy this car this weekend, earn £500 cashback type programs. You'll notice that both One for All and Gift Card Store are sort of within that pillar as well, which demonstrates how a lot of our solutions or the product in isolation can actually be used across multiple different verticals. You'll also notice in that column a couple of additional products. So we have Pure, which is our open loop prepaid solution, which is like ultimately used where clients need an alternative to cash. And we also have Select, which we'll learn a little bit more about in some of the case studies, which is our e-code swap platform, which enables recipients to receive a code, which they then go on to exchange for a gift card of their choice from a specific catalogue. Employee benefits is another really strong arm of our business, particularly in the UK, where we offer a range of different solutions that clients can offer to their employees as part of a wider employee benefits package. We've got great pedigree with the likes of Cycle Scheme and Tech Scheme, which enable employees to purchase items via salary sacrifice. We also have childcare voucher programs, discounted gift cards, and also our cashback prepaid card, which of course I have to talk about, being as that's the product in my area, which is called Beyond. This is a solution where employees can load their card direct from their salary, or they top it up themselves. And when they use it at participating retailers, they're earning cashback, which is paid back onto their card, ready for the next purchase that they wish to make. Finally, in the corporate pillar, this is really, again, sort of a demonstration of how we are taking some of the same products and using them in a slightly different way, in a slightly different space. So this is around the general disbursements. And we've seen some really great traction in this space, which the team will take you through shortly. On to the next slide, please, Seb. So as we know, our landscape is a highly regulated one, particularly when it comes to e-money solutions. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we've solved them all, because we certainly haven't. But I just wanted to share some of the challenges that we have, as I'm sure many, if not all of you, will empathize with these same things, and then share a little bit about how we're trying to approach them from a holistic perspective, as opposed to specific regulations and how we've overcome those. So regulations are getting tighter. There's no denying this. And I'm confident that this is a trend that we're not going to see reversing anytime soon. We often find they can be quite disproportionate as well, almost assuming that all prepaid cards are equal, and almost bank-like in our propositions. And we know just from our own product range that there is a huge variation in how prepaid cards can be used. This actually puts a huge amount of pressure, particularly on businesses like ours, where anonymous cards, particularly with One for All and our category cards, are a core part of our offering. And this is a challenge that we are going to have to overcome, probably not in the near future, but certainly as we look into the long-term future, it is likely that anonymous cards are going to become further challenged, and we're going to need to look at how we overcome that. We often find that the regulations are not quite as clear as we would like as well, and I'm sure many people will understand. Certainly, if I mention behavioural biometrics, for example, at the moment, that's probably a very topical one in terms of understanding exactly what we need to do and when. Another example is how we handle SEA for vulnerable customers, where there is no silver bullet. Other times it seems that some of these regulations actually seem to contradict each other, which makes it really hard for you to try and determine, well, what is the right way forward? How do we ensure we're compliant with all of these regulations when they seem to kind of be at odds with each other? And we also, as an issuer who has products that we are offering across Europe, we notice that there's an inconsistent approach. Again, take AMLD5 with the online spend limits, where across Europe, we know we have a €50 limit. However, in the UK, it's not necessarily being enforced. And we're seeing challenges with how different acquirers are handling that, how different issuers are handling that. But ultimately, how do you communicate some of that to a customer who doesn't know anything about AMLD5 and the rules that the issuers have to play within? Finally, many of the recent regulations and changes, they're just add-in steps to a customer journey. And as a product professional, my role is to make a customer journey as slick and as frictionless as I can. And unfortunately, some of these regulatory changes just mean we have to add steps, whether that's KYC, whether that's SCA when you're authorizing your online transaction, or a number of other sort of areas. It also increases our operating costs. And it's a cost that doesn't necessarily give us a return of investment in terms of driving additional revenue. And that's something that, we really struggle with. How do you justify these additional costs that we have to do? Because if we don't do them, we don't have a product, but that they don't necessarily mean that the sales team that I have on the call here today are going to be able to go and sell more of this product. So if we go to the next slide, how are we responding to these other than sitting in a dark room and cursing the latest request? And Seb's already said I'm not allowed to mention the Dear CEO letter, so I won't. We can only control what we can control. And so that's customer communications, being really, really clear with our end card holders in terms of what's happening and why. It's also education, both internally, to make sure that we are portraying these products in the right way to our end customers, to our clients, and then obviously to the end card holders as well. So again, really make sure they understand what these regulations mean and how they impact them. It's also about finding the right tech partners. As I say, we want as frictionless experiences as possible. And for that, we often have to rely on third parties to really help us deliver these types of things in a way that provides the best possible customer experience, but that stays within the lines of compliance. We also look at how we can turn compliance into a strength. And this is something that I've talked very sort of passionately within my time at Blackhawk in terms of compliance doesn't have to be a blocker. And it shouldn't be a blocker. It's a strength. It's a power that we should be presenting to our customers as part of our offering in terms of the security, in terms of the protection and so forth. But we're also starting to look at some of these things that we've had to do to be compliant. How can we start to use those to actually enhance our offering? An example I'll give here is open banking. We did a hugely complex piece of work around ensuring we had a compliant open banking solution for our cardholders. And now we're starting to look at, with the third party that we used to enable our kind of interactions, how can we use them to enrich our product offering, particularly with Beyond in our employee benefit space, to add new features and to ultimately look to how we can unlock new markets in the future. That was just, as I say, a quick whistle-stop tour. I'll hand over to my sales colleagues who'll give a slightly more exciting overview maybe of some of the case studies of how we've taken some of these products to market.
Thanks, Stacey. Really helpful to get your input and support on the current environment a lot of us are facing. And we work very closely with our product team in feeding that back on challenges that clients are seeing and changes in the industry as a whole. So really great to get some insight. So as Stacey said, myself and the team are just going to kind of help bring to life some of the use cases in businesses that we work with. We focus very much in the incentives pillar. The team on the call in terms of the Blackhawk entity that we spoke about earlier. And that is constantly changing in terms of our customer base and audience that we're talking to. And particularly over the last year and a half, we've really seen a change in terms of having to pivot a lot of our solutions in responding to new requirements and new customer needs. The case study that I'll just draw a bit of detail into is an interesting one and certainly a growing part of our business. Fund disbursement is something that we've always done as part of a B2B program, but one area that we've seen in particular growing need for is within public sector, third sector and charitable organisations as well. And one of those particular organisations, we started working with LTC just over a year ago now. We've got some quite compelling stats in terms of the volume of requirements they saw as an organisation come through to their business. So we'll jump into some of the detail of that just now. So Licensed Trade Charity, been established now for over 225 years, providing dedicated support to the drinks and hospitality sector. Obviously, that particular sector has been particularly hit over the last year and a half. And LTC are just one members of the ACO that we work with, supporting their employees and tradespeople within the sector. Other areas other charities we do work with that have been particularly hit hard include the retail environment, so Retail Trust, Travel with APTA, and a number of other national charities as well. LTC themselves support people in the sector primarily around kind of social, financial aspects of their life. And certainly in the last year or so, it's been accelerated. Our original kind of contact with LTC was actually born of a relationship with Green King, the well-known pub chain, of which we've been providing support for their employee reward and recognition program for a number of years. And through an introduction to LTC, it became very clear that actually the use case that Green King were finding in their organisation was absolutely representative of a number of other drink, trade and hospitality businesses. So LTC found themselves in a circumstance where they needed additional support to respond to these grants and peak of demand they were seeing. So if you wouldn't mind just popping on to the next slide. Oh, that one, thanks. Yeah, so as I said, it started really to peak for these guys at the beginning of last year, where in just over a couple of days, actually, during kind of a lockdown phase, over 4,000 hospitality workers were facing the real decision as to whether they use their reduced income to feed themselves or actually to heat their accommodation. You know, hopefully a decision that none of us would ever face. So a real life challenge. And the grant making team within LTC typically had administered these grants in a very manual fashion. And that was driven through a very small resource base as well. So as you can imagine, seeing an influx of applications over a very short period of time, relying on a very manual process to both approve and administer the grants became a real challenge for them. The traditional methods for them were issuing checks, bank transfer, backed payments, and what really became apparent was they really needed a new approach to meet this very time-sensitive need that they were facing at this time. So working with LTC, you know, as Stacey said, we very much specialise on delivering the reward or the end e-gift mechanic. But in this instance, we very much took a kind of consultative approach with LTC, understanding their real pain points and how we could help them to make a real success of this initiative. So it obviously involved digitising a lot of the steps in terms of the application process, moving away from the manual kind of process they were currently following, and making sure that the end fund disbursement mechanic was suitable for the audience that it was being dealt to, so for the beneficiaries. Obviously within the kind of drink sector, a lot of that audience tend to be in a younger demographic, so digital fitted pretty well, but we did also have some exceptions outside of that, which we were able to accommodate as well in terms of physical format. I'd say definitely the overarching objective, both for ourselves and LTC at that time, is really to help as many people in the industry as possible, as quickly as possible. Obviously caveating the fact that they would have to pass an eligibility criteria to meet that response. And, you know, really raising awareness of what the charity are doing and encouraging more people across the sector to come to them for support. So we worked with them on collaborative marketing, social and PR activity to really raise awareness of how they're able to help people in that sector, not just in terms of giving financial support, but also that emotive support as well, which was very, very important and continues to be to this day as well. So in terms of the actual solution itself, based on the response that was needed, the time that we had to do it, and the restricting nature of what they wanted the redemptions of the funds to be spent on, Hawk Select became an obvious conduit for us to stand up in terms of a digital platform. Green King actually had been using this as part of their R&R scheme itself. So it was great in terms of some employees who are actually quite familiar with the mechanic, and that obviously went into the kind of brainstorming process as well. At a very high level, what Hawk Select is, as Stacey said earlier on, it is a unique digital code that can be sent out digitally, physically, out to the recipients, and they can then exchange that for whatever is then featured in the catalogue. So whether that's e-gifts or maybe prepaid cards. And the platform itself can be branded end-to-end and include messaging and surveys in there as well, which we did towards the latter stages of the initiative to get feedback. LTC were very keen, obviously, in this specific instance, to lock down that category of redemption options. So putting it alongside specific retail categories within an essentials range was really, really important. So the categories we addressed were things like food and clothing, but obviously within this mechanic, it can be flexed in terms of that catalogue. And we were able to set this programme up in just under a week. So again, really, really important that we were able to stand this up in a responsive manner. It allowed people to exchange that code quickly, effectively, in a mechanic they were familiar with, and then ultimately use that for a disbursement or a fund that then they could use within a specified category. So they did want to lock it down into certain categories. So within food, we have a range of supermarkets. Obviously in clothing, we have a range of clothing retailers. Seb, for my next slide, thank you. So Select, as I said, can be distributed in a number of different ways. Digital is by far the most common way in which we do this across the business. There's many different use cases the rest of the team will share as well. That digital code can be fully branded, personalized. It can also be sent digitally, but also then printed out in terms of a PDF format. So perhaps for those recipients that don't have email addresses, or the organisation may not have access to those email addresses and they want to give them out physically, there's absolutely the opportunity to do that through Select as well. And then flexibility around integration with our platform, very important. So whether that be SFTP, API, password protected email ordering, we have a number of different options and self-serve that can be accessed by organisations. So what we found is really, really important to give the choice, do it quickly, and particularly within this public sector area, that we are supporting a number of organisations around beneficiary funding. So what were the results? Yeah, I think over just over a couple of days, as I said, 4,000 applications which were responded to in terms of a programme that was set up in just under a week. So, you know, it just shows the ability in which we could respond to this, and of which LTC were extremely grateful, and that has subsequently been rolled out across a number of other organisations they're supporting. Funds to this day of just under £1.4 million that have been distributed across a range of different catalogues. It does include, as I said, retail vouchers and prepaid as well. And holistically, as an organisation, Blackhawk has really stood up and responded and addressed the market, particularly over the last couple of years. Many of you may be aware of the Crown Commercial Framework that has been set up very recently, administering vouchers through a central government initiative, of which we are listed and present. And so we have a dedicated team and service which is around our payments for good go-to-market, which really just is specifically aimed at catering for this part of our sector we address. So hopefully I've just given you a very quick snapshot, a bit of a flavour in terms of how we respond in this particular arena. Select itself obviously is a conduit to products like prepaid with a great amount of flexibility as well. So I'll pass you on to Leona now. Leona is going to just give a quick overview specifically of how we supported a number of clinical trial incentives and also vaccinations over in the US as well.
Thanks, Pete. Great to be speaking to you all this afternoon, so thank you. As Pete already said, I'm going to be talking to you about how we have supported some clinical trial studies and research. We have predominantly been working in the UK, the US and Australia, and are now starting to branch out into other regions. Move on to the next slide, please, Seb. So a lot of businesses have been struggling with recruitment and participation rates in clinical studies and research. And typically they have been incentivizing participants by offering either a backs payment or a checks payment. These are often really kind of admin heavy for these businesses because they're just not set up to manage value disbursements in this way. So we've been working with a number of different businesses to help support that and providing a close to cash equivalent. So using our prepaid products and the likes of Select to be able to take away that admin burden for them, but also to manage the full end-to-end process. So right through from the data processing, right the way through to aftercare for customers in terms of any questions that they have in relation to their payments, which, as I said, these businesses are not really set up to do. The second part that we are supporting is in the vulnerable group space. And this is where we're really seeing our closed loop products coming to life. So there are some audiences that are participating in clinical studies where cash just wouldn't be a suitable option and would leave them in a really vulnerable position. So we've been using our closed loop products such as Select to be able to tailor and control where these patients and participants can spend that value. And the third pillar really is in international. So there are many clinical trial studies and businesses that require a single solution to support multiple regions. So using our prepaid card solutions that are issued in dollars and pounds and euros really helps us to support these businesses with their international requirements. Next slide, please. So we've recently been working with a company called Mac Research, and they came to us with a specific need in regards to supporting a new study to help ex-drug users to trial a new medication to support their recovery. Now, of course, for obvious reasons, issuing a backs payment or a check is not really suitable for this audience. And this is where our Select solution really supported this business. So as Pete already touched upon in the previous slides, we were able to tailor the catalogue or the options of where these recipients could spend that value. And we removed retailers such as supermarkets and any other retailers where tobacco or alcohol products could be purchased. So we really tailored that catalogue to make it relevant and suitable for that particular audience. In addition to that, we was able to really user experience in terms of the branding and the messaging as well to make it really simple and relevant throughout the user experience. And of course, a huge bonus for Mac was that we were able to take on the full admin burden from them, managing the full end-to-end process. And we're also speaking with them about other initiatives that we can support them with in taking over all of their clinical trial payment business in terms of using our prepaid products and Select for other audiences as well. Next slide, please, Seb. I know we said we wasn't going to speak about COVID, but hopefully this is from a more positive standpoint. So the US have a very different view on how they are encouraging individuals to take up the vaccine. And we've been working with government bodies and organisations to really understand how we can support the uptake of vaccinations over in America. So we conducted some really detailed research that found that, of course, monetary incentives would actually encourage the uptake of vaccinations. But what was really, really interesting is that a large percentage would actually prefer to receive that payment on a prepaid card in both, a digital or a physical format. And also that the families of those that have been incentivized to take up the vaccination would also be encouraged to take it up as well, which is great news. Next slide, please, Seb. So we've been working with many businesses and government bodies over in America using our prepaid card solutions to disperse value to encourage individuals to take up the vaccination. And it's seen some great success rates. And we're continuing to work with them across the programs to also encourage not only the first dose, but also the second dose as well. And we're taking that into other regions as well where we see it being relevant. So that was just a very, very quick kind of overview of how we're supporting this sort of arena, and we're continuing to work in other sort of regions, not only in the US and in the UK, also in Australia and across Europe now as well, using our prepaid cards and select solutions. I'll now pass you on to Ronan.
Hi folks, thank you very much for being here and listening to us today. I'm speaking from an insurance rebate scheme that was in Ireland. I'm business development in Ireland, and what we have done in Ireland is basically look at how we could, it's often funny in the sense that Seb earlier mentioned we won't speak about COVID, but in terms of from our perspective, we looked at the opportunities around the COVID implications to businesses during last year, and one of them was insurance rebate scheme. So if you'd go to the next slide, Seb, please. What we noticed in the market that was happening was a mix of a number of things that were happening. One was there was governmental pressure coming on the insurance schemes and the reason for our insurance companies, and the reason for that was related to the drops in traffic that we're seeing throughout the country, and the pressure also that came on from the public in relation to premiums that were still being paid and still outgoing from customers' accounts, and how the insurance company was going to deal with that. As Finance, Pascal Donoghue, was beginning to sort of put pressure on the insurance companies in order to look at some sort of scheme that would sort of alleviate the public, but also we understood that they wanted to get money back into the Irish economy for spending. So next slide, please, Seb. So what we noticed happening was that a rebate scheme was being looked at rather than a reduction in premiums in the following year. But what we realized, as has been mentioned before, was a number of issues that, especially Stacey has mentioned earlier on, around, you know, compliance issues to do with that, how that was going to be managed. It was already mentioned that we realized the insurance companies this would be a huge administrative burden upon them. One, because as we're all on a Zoom call now, 12 months later, still people are not back in the offices. They would have to bring an awful lot of people back in together in their offices in order to facilitate this. But because ours was a financial regulated product, we were actually, a number of our organization and employees were still in the offices, which allowed us to sort of look at this for them. And the next slide, please, Seb. Okay. So what was their dilemma? We know sort of nationwide minimum, there was about 600,000 policyholders in the area. As I mentioned, the office staff working from home. How the injection was going to happen into the Irish economy, what way was going to this was going to work, how it was going to be communicated, and it has been mentioned by Stacey, the GDPR issue. We have customer data here, but it's not just minor data. We're talking about everybody, every car insurance owner, their name, address, and their policy number. How is that going to be managed? Next slide, please. So what we built at a sort of local level in Ireland for them was we engaged the insurance companies. We were able to show to them that within our own staffing and infrastructure, we had the ability to upscale, so the production of cards in order to facilitate that could be done. We had a ready-made solution in terms of the one-for-all closed loop. This gave us the opportunity to promote to them that any monies that were being used in this and spent by the insurance companies to give back to their customers was going to go directly into the Irish economy. There wasn't spending beyond the Republic of Ireland, which satisfied a major pressure point for them. Was if they gave them cash back, would it sit in bank accounts? If they gave them cash back, would it leave the economy? This way they knew it would stay in there. Tailored branding, you'll see in a few moments, but that's around sort of, you know, each policy owner receiving a branded card so they know it came from the various insurance companies. One of the things we took on board was the project management end-to-end solution, bringing together all the parties, whether it was legal and compliance, IT managed services, how we're going to transfer data, the GDPR. Stacey mentioned it. We were, as an entity in Ireland, only taken over 2 years ago by Blackhawk and have come under the family. One of the things we noticed straight away was the strength around security protocols. This gave the large insurance companies huge comfort when we brought them onto meetings and calls with our security and IT teams about our robust systems that will allow us to securely hold their policyholders' details and securely send it out, and comfort that they know it wouldn't be breached. We would have the right systems in place. Also, they noticed through this system, and this is only high level, the cost savings. If you estimate, if they had to post out to each individual policyholder, each company was spending around about 100,000 euros per business just in postage. That was a cost that we were saving them. They were looking at outsourcing staff to facilitate this. This is a cost we were saving them, the branding, and also the customer service element. So what Blackhawk have is a customer service element that allowed us to say to the companies, should anybody have any issues with cards, we will deal with that. That took away the problem if they were sending out checks or if they were doing EFT refunds or what other alternatives they were looking at. They wouldn't have to upscale their customer service departments to do with that. They were actually able, in all cases, maintain the existing levels of customer service to facilitate the solution. Next slide, please, Seb. So what was the solution? A tailored package that was branded. So we branded all the one for all closed loop cards with the various company logos. We allowed in all cases, these were letters, branded letters that were signed by the country leadership for each individual company, explaining the situation, explaining why it was being given back. So it gave them that direct link to the customer. Each letter was branded and addressed to the individual policyholder. So it allowed a sort of very personalized message to happen. On those details were how to deal with customer service. We also, from a company in Ireland, we also gave them marketing and PR support. So as queries arose around social media interactions from people about you know, how to use everything from how to use the card to am I getting one to everything else, we supported them on that as well. So we were looking at a complete tailored package for them. Next slide, please. Basically, overall, what it was a project managing the whole project end to end. We brought on a number of departments into this, whether it was IT, legal, marketing, operations, everything to produce this. Peter sort of intimated the tight timelines that sometimes happen with these. We were able to print and brand a package for 600,000 cards and distribute from start to finish within that 2-month window when it originated. We had full tracking of the card distribution because of the card numbers. We knew whether they were being used or not. So as people said they didn't receive the card, we had a system in place to check that card number. If it hasn't been spent, cancel and reissue, and there was a process around that. And then we were able to verify back to them the amount of the value of the monies that was injected back into the Irish economy that really has been injected in from the initial distribution happened in late May of last year, and was continuing all the way up till a number of months ago. So the insurance companies were able to show to the government that the value of what they had done had actually injected money directly into the Irish economy. We were able to deliver directly to the insurance policyholders. Why? Because of our robust IT controls, the GDPR controls we have in place that allowed us to receive the personal data, protect the personal data, and use it only as for processing. Next slide. I think that's it. Yeah. So that's kind of what we did in the end. So that's kind of it from that side. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronan. I think there were some questions, but I just want to take two seconds, Diane, to thank everybody on from the Blackhawk here, because we put all those slides, or they put all those slides together, and as you can see from the slides, they are very busy with all the things that are going on. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it, and I hope that gave a flavor of what Blackhawk does, because even sometimes internally it's difficult for us to explain exactly what we do, because we are so we have such a wide range of products and solutions and technologies. So hopefully that was helpful.
It was, Seb, thank you so much. I think that was a terrific insight to what Blackhawk has been doing over the last 18 months, particularly in respect of the pandemic. And I think you know, lots of members and even wider will find the discussion today extremely useful. So thank you very much to you, Seb, to Leona, Martina, Stacey, Ronan, and Peter. I don't know if you wanted to address the questions. I think Peter has answered perhaps one of them.
Yeah, I can take up. There's two questions in directed
Okay.
for ourselves. So one of the questions is, how can you deliver a closed loop card just to the Irish economy? Surely prepaid cards should be used online as well. They're available to use online only within the Irish retail network that have signed up as a retailer for us. So you'll have a double side. One is the Irish retail in-store spending and the Irish retail online spending as well. So that's how that was controlled, and that closed loop. The other one is, if they had sent out checks for rebate payments, if you had sent out prepaid cards, how come you save them? Is your card posted? So the general cost we worked off is about 70 cents per card sent out. As part of our program, we cover that charge for the client. We don't charge it on for them on it. Hopefully that answers that. They would have to pay direct. We don't charge them for it.
Okay, great, Ronan, thank you so much. Does anybody have anything else to add?
I just have a couple of points that obviously my colleagues mentioned today, and I think it's really important. One of them was about compliance, and I think it's Stacey who mentioned that we shouldn't see compliance as a blocking point all the time. And I think our compliance team has been very helpful to guide us in how we design product, how we launch product, how we support the product already live. And we have Martina on the panel today, and it was important for us to also bring our compliance team, because they've been part of the success that we have, and working with our compliance team has been helpful, very helpful in fact. So that was one point, and I'm hoping that we can give that sort of story to our other members, because sometimes I know that there is conflict internally with compliance team, with legal team, where we see it as always it's a problem, but it is not, and we've been experiencing that for sure. The other point is about customer journey. I know I was kind of saying that we're not gonna talk about the letter to the CEO, we're not going to talk about COVID, but obviously these elements are very important to the product that we have, the services, etc. So if we look at customer experience, for us, we spend a lot of time to review the customer experience. And this is why, on top of all the problems that the letter to the CEO was causing, for us, there was a big impact to the customer and customer perception. Like Stacey mentioned that as well. They have no idea about the regulations. They don't even want to know. And it's really important, and we work very hard to make sure that the customer is not impacted by these sort of things. And it's very hard to comply with the regulations, but also satisfy the customer with a sleek and seamless customer journey. So that's another point. And I think I mentioned it before, where sometimes, yes, we do focus on the regulations, and we kind of forget a little bit about the customer. And I think this is really important to me, for sure, that we need to spend a little bit more on the customer experience. There's another question, I think. Oh, it's quite close.
Yeah, I'm just replying to that now.
Super.
Type it away. Yeah, no problems.
And the final point that I wanted to make, Diane, sorry, it's yes, I was saying that we will not talk about COVID, but how could we? Because it has affected lots of businesses. It has affected lots of life and people's life and people behavior, people habits, etc. And I think the team has done an incredible job at helping our clients and partners. I like to say that we consider our clients as partner most of the time, because we work with them. We work really hard to support them with the challenges that they have. And you know, we've presented Select today, the solution that we are using, but that is a result of working with the partners, working and trying to understand their needs and trying to understand the challenges that they have. And this is why we came with those use cases, because it's important. It's obviously COVID has affected everyone, but it also has brought people together. And I think the use cases that, for instance, Peter was presenting is something that we want to help. Hospitality has been affected by all this, and we are trying to help those partners to come out of this, I guess, painful period. So hopefully that was helpful for everyone to understand a little bit more about Blackhawk. Guys, I don't know if you have any points that you wanted to say or anything you wanted to mention. Peter, Ronan?
There's
Steve?
one other question, guys. If we manufacture our own cards.
So if I reply in an Irish point of view, we do a mix of both. We have in-house production, but in times of redundancy, we also have third-party companies that we use to produce for excess capacity and things like this. So, for example, in the insurance, we did a mix of both on it.
Yeah, I don't think we will be sharing who we are partnering with. So thank you for the interest.
We use multiple partners though, as Ronan says. I think across all of our different products, we have different supply chains across them.
Okay. Diane?
If there are no more questions, I'd just like to say an enormous thank you to all of you for joining us today. I think it's such a terrific example, you know, how the industry, how an organization like Blackhawk Network has, you know, risen to what is quite possibly the greatest challenge to face, you know, the payments and fintech sector. And certainly for us, the whole point of this new series is to shine a spotlight on the incredible amount of work that's being done, you know, the agility in the industry, and the fact that, you know, we are all working together to make that positive difference, using prepaid and partnering with others in the payments ecosystem. So certainly a huge thanks from me.
Thank you, Diane. We just received another question about how does Blackhawk feel about using one-time only plastic in the current climate? Is there anyone who wants to answer this?
This is something that I'm looking into actually at the moment. We issue our cards via MasterCard, and I'm in discussions with them about some of the sort of environmental initiatives that they have. So while it's not kind of something that we're doing today, it's definitely something that we as an organization will kind of look towards to ensure we're doing our kind of part of social responsibility as well.
Yeah, and definitely we're focusing more on the digital space.
Yes.
And launching more and more digital products.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So digital is becoming more and more popular for clients. We had to educate some of the clients regarding digital because it affects the customer journey. Is a little bit different. So depending on the audience that they have, we have to provide both. But sustainable product is something that we are looking for sure. As you know, we have membership with MasterCard and Visa. We issue cards with Visa and MasterCard in the UK and Visa through Ireland. So we have a lot of cards in circulation, and this is a kind of a hot topic for us, and we're trying to address it as soon as possible, really. Okay, fantastic. So I think we can probably wrap it up. And Diane, thanks again for giving us the opportunity. And I hope to, I guess, see all the members shortly face to face.
Let's hope so. And absolutely, the pleasure is all ours. And yes, hopefully in the autumn we can have our AGM and an annual conference, and hope that you can all come back and see each other again. So many thanks again to you, Seb, to Leona, Martina, Stacey, Ronan and Peter. We look forward to seeing you again very soon. And thank you to everybody, our members who have joined us for the live session today.